Okay, so we're going to talk about writing a literature review. This is going to be a very short, compact, what should actually be an entire course, I think, writing a lit review. The first thing students ask me is, where do I start? So what I say is, obviously you have to choose a topic or a population and do literature searches. If you choose a very specific population and there's absolutely nothing out there on that, you obviously might have to revise that. You could do literature searches through the library at EBSCO. I usually use PsycInfo. I also have used ProQuest Psychology Journals. That tends to work pretty well. You can use ERIC as well, and then Dissertation Abstracts Online. And gather your articles and then read them. And while you're reading each article, take notes. And what you do is, what I used to do is attach the notes to the front of the article, or if it was electronic, I would write notes in a Word document indicating which journal or which article it came from. The more notes that you have, the better you're going to be able to figure out how to organize your information. The other thing is that a lot of times when you're writing, you're going to remember you read something from somewhere, but you're not necessarily going to remember the article name or the author's name. So if you have your notes, it's a whole lot easier to look at the notes very quickly and figure out where you read something than it is to have to go back through every single article. So now what? Well, then you have to organize your notes. Organize really the information that you've gotten. Some of it's empirical, research-based. Some of it is just general information. Obviously, there are articles that are entire literature reviews where they try to synthesize information. So you're going to go from the general to the specific. The idea here is to narrow down into your topic. Give us general information first, and then the information that's very specific to you, to your topic, goes last. Because that, first of all, you're gonna have the least amount of information on that anyway. So it's say eventually the topic you want to get to is high-risk adolescents and their career needs. You would start with adolescents and maybe general adolescents' career needs. Then you would talk about high-risk adolescents and maybe how they're different than typical adolescents or non-high-risk adolescents, however you would like to state that. And then you bring it into career needs specific to high-risk adolescents. Now, sometimes you need to infer, meaning that sometimes you need to say, well, here's the career needs of typical adolescents. Here are the issues specific to high-risk adolescents. So not only are we going to have these particular career needs, but we're also going to have these other needs as well. And so sometimes you do have to kind of work your way into your topic if there's not a ton of information out there. Create subject headings. So after you organize your information, you basically create subheadings or subject headings for your literature review based on the stuff previously. So you obviously are going to have an introduction with a statement of the problem in it. You're going to have the subject headings, and then you're going to have a conclusion. And please do not write a conclusion that sounds just like the introduction. The conclusion really is kind of a culminating paragraph. So an example is for high-risk adolescents. For the section, for the subject heading of high-risk adolescents, you might have subsections. You might want to define. You might not necessarily draw these out, but talk about the statistics of high-risk adolescents and the needs of high-risk adolescents, and that would all be under the subject heading high-risk adolescents. So you have the larger subject headings and then decide what you want underneath each one, and that makes it so much easier to write. Because once it's organized, you're literally just looking for articles and things. The other part of that is that you don't necessarily just say, okay, Smith and Smith said this, and they found this in their study, and so said this, and what you can say is high-risk adolescents tend to have a lower high school graduation rate, and you might have 4 different articles that say that. You can cite all 4 of those. You don't have to say so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so said da-da-da-da-da. So there are ways to write it that makes it a lot more smooth than that. So then you prepare to write. And when you're discussing each topic, remember the topic sentence. You have to have a topic sentence for each paragraph. You want to, like I said, synthesize the information. So you can go back through it and talk about there have been several different career models used with success with high-risk adolescents. These models include, and then you list the models, and then you put the citations of maybe 3 articles for the different models that have used it with different models. You don't need to say, so-and-so used this model, and when they did, they found da-da-da-da-da-da. And then so-and-so used this model, and when they did, they found da-da-da-da-da. It gets very boring for the reader. It makes it very long, and you don't necessarily need that. Only discuss in detail the studies that are the most important, and usually for the small lit review that y'all are doing for career, you only really want to do that for 1 or 2 articles if there's a study that is particularly important to your population. So if there's a school counselor who began a program and did research on the effectiveness of a career counseling program for high-risk adolescents, that would obviously be something you might want to go into detail with. But you might not necessarily want to go into detail on just general research on high-risk adolescents. If you need more help, I uploaded an article which has an integrated lit review using attachment theory and career counseling, and you can also send me questions. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks.